Hello, 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 and welcome to this live English lesson here at English with Nick. For those of you who do not know me, I am Nick. And as we wait for people to arrive, I can tell you a little bit about myself. I am originally from the United States, but now I live in Berlin, Germany, where I work as an English teacher. Teaching mostly online using Skype to people from all over the world. For example, today I had lessons with a student in Germany, so not so far from me. And then directly after, student from Thailand. And later this week, I'll have a student from Japan, students from Brazil, and a few other countries. So what I like to do on this channel and at these live lessons is teach English for everyone. So no matter where you're from, I'm going to show you some of the common mistakes that all of my learners make when using English and learning English. And today we are going to talk about a very important phrase. It depends. It depends. So maybe you've heard it before, maybe this is brand new for you, but either way, I'm going to show you how to use it both in terms of grammar and also, more importantly, when to use it. So we're going to first start with a little bit of discussion about our weekends and how we used our free time. And then a little bit more, I'm going to review my small talk formula, which those of you who are viewers of this channel have probably heard about. And then we're really going to talk about when we use it depends, different ways. Then we're going to go over some questions where it might be the answer. And then finally, some typical mistakes, ending with the biggest mistake that you can make when using it depends. All right, so let's get started. And the first question I want to ask you all is, how was your weekend? How was your weekend? We'll start with me. I'll go ahead and answer that. My weekend was tiring. I don't know why, but for some reason, I was really tired the whole time. On Friday, I had friends over to my apartment. And then on Saturday, I played Frisbee. Viewers of the show of this lesson will often hear me talk about that. That's my typical Saturday plans. And on Sunday, I went for a walk. We had great weather here in Berlin, Germany, where I am. All right, so you see me talk about my weekend like that, and the question is like, what did I do there? What are some things to keep in mind about the way I answered that? And it leads to my small talk formula. We do an answer plus one. We do an answer plus one. So that means that when someone asks you a question, a small talk question, you give the answer plus at least one sentence. So here, someone just asked me, how was your weekend? So my weekend was tiring. It made me tired. And then I gave more information. I don't know why, but for some reason, I was tired the whole time. And that could lead the other person to maybe ask some more specific questions, like, is that common for you? Or, oh, do you think you're feeling sick? Or something like that. And then I even give a little bit more here, and I said what I did on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. So this is the longer form. This is maybe what I would say to someone that I'm closer friends with. But I didn't just give the answer. So what I want you guys to do, you can practice this, and you can answer the question, how was your weekend, in the comments there, and I'll take a look and see how you did. This small talk formula, which I'm going to talk about a lot, this answer plus one, comes up in a lot of ways. For example, what are some typical small talk questions? Some typical small talk questions are, Where are you from? Ooh, typo. Where are you from? This comes up a lot. And yeah, so you think, oh, I just have one answer here. But no, you can give more information. For example, I can say I am from the US, which I did earlier. However, I live in Berlin now. I'm from the US, but I live in Berlin now. That's my +1. So now the other person has the chance to ask me a question about the US or about Berlin or what it's like to move from one to the other. All right, what's another typical small talk question? What do you do? And when people say, what do you do? They mean, what do you do for a living? I could say, I am an English teacher. And that is correct. It is correct that I'm an English teacher. But that doesn't give the other people that much information to go on. They're going to have to start asking more specific questions. So I'm going to give them some more. I teach mostly adults on Skype. I teach mostly adults on Skype. So now these people can ask me questions about being an English teacher, about teaching online, teaching adults, maybe saying, well, what about children? Have you ever taught kids? And I can say, yes, I have taught kids, but I don't have as much experience with that. Yeah, so this is where the small talk formula helps. It gives the other person a chance to ask follow-up questions. And you can also lead the conversation into whichever direction you want. All right, so that's it for a little bit of an intro about small talk. And now we're going to go to this. This is something that happens in small talk and really deep conversations. What happens when there are multiple answers to a question? What should you do? So it's not as simple. Like when you ask, where are you from? For me, at least, I have a very simple answer, Louisville, Kentucky, USA. And I can still build on it. But what if it's another question like, how about when do you wake up in the morning? When do you wake up in the morning? Or you could just say, when do you wake up? Usually. So some people wake up at the same time every day. They don't even need an alarm. They just wake up and that's the time they wake up. But some people, for example, me, I would say on Monday to Thursday, I usually wake up at about 9 a.m. On Friday, we'll say usually about 10 a.m. And then on Saturday and Sunday, I wake up, we'll say at 11. So there's not one answer. And this is where our new phrase, it depends, can be used. It depends. So the answer would be, it depends. During the week, I wake up, let me see that. Yeah, I wake up around 9 or 10. On the weekend, I sleep till 11. On the weekend, I sleep till 11. So that way, this is one way you can do that when there's multiple answers. And if you see, I didn't just say, it depends. When do you wake up usually? It depends, punkt. Because that doesn't really give the other person information. Yeah, it's saying, like, it's kind of typical that people wake up at different times, but no, they want more information. And this is a nice way to give it to them. Say, it depends, and then continue on. Yeah, so what are some other questions that kind of fit this as well? We can say, maybe a question, do you want to go hiking with me? Hiking with me this weekend. Do you want to go hiking with me this weekend? So, yeah, let's say you asked me that, and I could say, it depends. I don't want to say yes or no. I don't have enough information. I just want to tell you more about how I'm feeling. It depends. If you are going to hike more than 20 kilometers, I can't join. But if it's a more relaxed hike, then I am interested. Then I am interested. So here's another time where someone asks a question, do you want to do something? And you don't just have one answer. It really will depend on what the other person, on what the other information is. All right, so let's go break it down really now into the 3 ways to use it depends. From a grammar point of view, what are the 3 ways that we can do this? The first way is to say, it depends, period, and then plus more sentences. We can also say, it depends on, and then fill in the blank. It depends on, and it'll be followed by a noun or a longer phrase. Or we can say, it depends if, and this is usually something that'll be like a yes or no question, or a yes or no statement. So let's take a look at some examples here. It depends plus more sentences. Maybe this one would be, for example, where do you like to go out on Friday nights? Where do you like to go out on Friday nights? Yeah, I think this is a nice question when someone moves to a new city and they want to learn more about the nightlife and maybe say like, oh, maybe we could hang out sometime. Where do you like to go out on Friday nights? But different Friday nights are different. And for some people, this Friday night is always the same, always the same. But for other people, not so much. Me, for example, I would say it depends. And am I done there? Do I just say it depends? That's, yeah, not very friendly. It's not very open. It doesn't really bring the conversation any farther. And in small talk is when, the conversation just kind of dies because it sounds like you don't care. It depends. Yeah. So what I would say if someone asked me this, if I was out tonight at a restaurant or a bar and start talking to someone, hey, where do you like to go out on Friday nights? I would say it depends. With my close friends, I prefer to hang out at someone's apartment. With my close friends, I prefer to hang out at someone's apartment. Then I would say, on a date, I really like to go to Sumia oder zu dir. That's a local bar in my neighborhood that I really enjoy going to. Or if I want to go dancing, I go to Zus war gestern. So yeah, these are all German words, so don't worry if you don't understand them. And yeah, these are just bars or clubs around where I live. So I'm just basically giving them more information and I'm telling them more about myself. They're like, oh, okay, so sometimes he goes on dates in that kind of a place. And I could then describe the places a little bit more. Or they could say like, oh, what kind of a place is zu mir oder zu dir? There. So that's one way to do it. It depends plus more sentences. Like if this, then that, or sometimes, or usually can come in there as well. All right, so what was that second version that we had? What was that second version? It depends on. It depends on, followed by another phrase. For example, what are you doing this weekend? This is a very typical small talk question. What are you doing this weekend? And I often answer, and this is, true, because I love spending time outside, being in nature, but what are you doing this weekend? It depends on the weather. It depends on the weather. Sadly, depending on where you live, Yeah, maybe the weather's really important. I used to live in Southern California where the weather was always nice. I didn't have to use this phrase as much, but in Berlin, especially in May, sometimes we have nice weather, sometimes we have not so nice weather. So I can say it depends on the weather. And am I done there? No, that's not a good answer. Grammatically, it's correct to say it depends on the weather. It's factually correct, but it's not a good answer to keep the conversation going. So I would say it depends on the weather. If it's sunny, I'm going for a bike ride. If it's cloudy, I want to go hiking. And if it's rainy, I will just stay inside and watch some movies. So it depends on da 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 da. We can also say, for example, it depends on how much work I get done today. It depends on how much work I get done today. So maybe if I don't get enough work done today, I have to work on the weekend and don't get to do fun things. Then you could just say, but if I finish all my work, I will visit Munich. Munich, a city in Germany, for those of you who aren't in Germany or don't know. It's one of the bigger cities, a nice city, beautiful city to visit. And finally, it depends if. It depends if. This is the third variation. It depends if, and here we could say, maybe a good question would be, where will your next vacation be? Where will your next vacation be? You're not sure yet. You don't have anything planned. You could say, it depends if my boyfriend gets time off. It depends if my boyfriend gets time off. That means that the person's partner isn't sure if they'll be able to get vacation days. And then you could say, if he does, we will go visit his family. If he doesn't, I will travel by myself to Spain, we'll say. I will travel by myself to Spain. So yeah, it depends if my boyfriend gets time off. All right, so these are the three ways that we can use it. And it's just, naturally whatever makes more sense in the conversation there. All right, so now what are some typical questions that you might need to answer that could have if in there? And what I'd like you to do is to answer these questions in the comments to practice. And of course, as always, if you have any questions, do you have any questions, you can always write them either about it depends or anything else related to English or American culture or anything. Feel free to write a comment and I'll have some time at the end to answer any questions there. But back to these questions, which I'd like you to answer in the comments below. When do you go to bed? When do you go to bed? What do you do on the weekend? This is what do you regularly do on the weekend? Who cooks at your house? Who cooks at your house? And what are you doing on Sunday? What are you doing on Sunday? So take a look at these questions and answer a few of them in the comments below. And you don't have to use it depends. Perhaps you always do the same thing. Perhaps always the same person cooks at your house. Perhaps this Sunday you know exactly what you're doing and the weather doesn't matter. So, go ahead and try to answer these in the comments below. I'll give you a couple of moments to do that. And if you're watching the replay, one nice thing is that you can pause it here and go ahead and do the exercise. And yeah, we don't have to wait for me to wait for you. But yeah, it will. Yeah, another thing too is I will check the comments after. So if you do watch the replay, yeah, it's 2 p.m. here in Germany and in a lot of Europe. I know in Asia and Japan and China, it's a little bit later in the evening. And this is quite early for anyone in the Americas. Anyone watching from the US or from Brazil or Venezuela or Argentina or wherever. So, yep, go ahead and you can finish up answering those questions. As we move on to some of the most typical phrases that people use it depends with. And we've used some of them already. One of them, it depends on the weather. It depends on the weather. Yeah, sadly, the weather can have a big influence on us. I wish it didn't. I try to, even when it's rainy, like for example, today it's rainy here in Berlin, but I'm still going to go for a walk with my friend Soph. And yeah, we said, hey, we don't care that it's rainy. We're going to go for a walk. I don't want to be stuck inside all day. All right. Also, it depends on the day. It depends on the day. And here's something when people ask, oh, about what do you regularly do? What do you, like, when do you wake up? What do you eat for dinner? It depends on the day because every day is different. Yeah, maybe on Mondays it's like this, on Tuesdays it's like this, on the weekends, on the weekdays there. And this other one, it depends on my mood. It depends on my mood. Yeah, a lot of times people ask like, oh, what do you want to do this weekend? What do you want to do later? Do you want to do this with me? And they can't give an exact answer because if they're tired, they're not going to be in the mood to do it. So yeah, here are some typical phrases that are good just to memorize. It depends on the weather. It depends on the day. It depends on my mood. All right, then. Now let's go ahead and move on to some of the typical mistakes that I see. The typical mistakes that I see involved with this. And we'll start with some grammar mistakes, and then we'll move on to the biggest mistake that I see related to it depends. A lot of people say it depends of. It depends of. And that is not correct. It depends of, nothing depends of. You can't use it there. If you've noticed, what preposition do we use? Do you remember from before? What preposition, yeah, have we used? While I fix this to the side. Yeah, what preposition? It depends on. Correct. It depends on is the correct way to say it. Not it depends of, it depends on. Another thing that I often hear from my students is when they want to say this thing and like I'll say, when do you go to bed? And they'll say, it's different. They'll say, it's different. In this case, it's wrong. It's different is a valid sentence. You can sometimes say it's different, but not in this case. Yeah, and I don't know if it's just that when people are translating from their native language that depends and different are similar, and that's what's causing the confusion, but yeah, we don't want to say it's different. We really want to say it depends, and that is the correct version there. It depends. It depends. All right, so now I want to talk with you guys about the biggest mistake that I see with it depends. The biggest mistake I see with it depends. In this, we've talked a lot about small talk today and how in small talk people will sometimes use the phrase it depends. But it's also used in really deep conversations. When I'm talking to my friends who are native English speakers, for example, the friend that I'm going to talk to today, and we talk about very deep things. Yeah, we talk about relationships, we talk about politics, we talk about business strategy, We talk about all of these things, and so often we use the phrase, it depends. I'll ask her about her work and say, oh, is it better to do it this way or this way? And she'll say, it depends. And here's the mistake that she doesn't make. Yeah, she's a great conversationalist. I really enjoy talking to her. And I try not to say it either. But the biggest mistake that I hear is stopping after saying it depends. People stopping after saying it depends. They'll just answer the question, it depends, and wait for the other person to ask the question. So the appropriate question after that would be, what does it depend on? And of course, that's one way to have the conversation. One person says it depends, the other says, what does it depend on? Yeah, but what I've noticed, no matter who is talking, it's not a good way to keep the conversation flowing naturally. You should think about what does it depend on, and then share that information with the other person. And maybe it depends on a lot of factors. So sometimes they'll say, the conversation will go, person one, it depends. Then we'll have person two, what does it depend on? And then back to person one, it depends on a lot of things. And then person two, what things? And it just doesn't work for a good conversation. Instead, you want to say, it depends, and then you want to give more information there. So back to some of my original examples. It would be someone says, hey, Nick, how can I learn English? Yeah, here's a good one. Hey, Nick, how can I learn English? What should I say? What should I say? Do you guys have any tips here? If someone said, Nick, how can I learn English? Should I just say, it depends, and then stop? It's correct. It does depend. No, I should give more information. In this case, and if this is what really happens to me, that people say like, oh, they find out I'm an English teacher before, and they're like, oh, how can I learn English? It depends. And then I can ask, what are your goals? What is your experience so far? And ask further questions like that. What are your goals? What is your experience so far? Or I can say, it depends, and say, most people just need practice speaking. That means the best way to learn is to find someone to practice speaking with. So here I say it depends, but I give one concrete example which works for most people. But I also don't say that's the only answer. I say that there's multiple ways people can learn, and that there's a best way for different people. Or I could say, it depends. The most important thing for most people is to use the language. That can either be writing or speaking, depending on what they need it for. For example, I live in Germany, and I don't need to use written German very much. I have a lot of conversations in German, but I don't need to write in German. I write a few text messages, and then sometimes I'll have to write letters to official government agencies and stuff like that and answer their letters in German. But that doesn't come very often, and I usually just have a German friend of mine proofread it for me. Yeah, but anyways, yeah, so for me, speaking was the most important thing. All right, so let's review a little bit about what we did today. So first, I said, hey, we talked about my weekend where it was a very tiring weekend. for me. And remember, when I told you that, I didn't just say it was tiring. That requires the other person to ask a question back, and the conversation doesn't flow as well. I said it was tiring, and then I said more specifically what I did. And that's an example of this small talk formula. Answer plus one. Whenever you're engaged in small talk, and most of the time when you're in any sort of situation, answer the question and give a little bit more information so the other person can go in either of the two directions. And then we started talking about the main topic of today, this phrase, it depends. It depends is an amazing phrase that if you want to have deep conversations, get past this small talk, you're going to have to know how to use it. And if you want the conversations to flow, it depends, and then saying what it depends on and what are some of the possibilities. This answer is it depends. The plus one is everything else. Remember, it's at least one. You're allowed to say more. Don't feel limited to just one sentence. But if you're struggling at the beginning and you're used to just answering with one sentence, then at least try to do one. And we went over some typical questions, and now you can try to answer these in the comments below, and I will give you some feedback on how you did. So, when do you go to bed? What do you do on the weekend? Who cooks at your house? What are you doing on Sunday? All right, so that's all the time that we have for today. I'd like to thank you for being here and listening to me talk a little bit about It Depends. If you have any ideas for future live lessons that you think would be helpful for you and for everybody watching here at English with Nick, then feel free to write it in the comments or to send me a private message on YouTube. You can also send me an email. Let me see if I can figure out a way to find out how to put that up there. It'll be in the description below. I'll go ahead and do that now right after I end the stream. So yeah, that's it for today. I look forward to seeing you again in the future. I try to do these live lessons once a week. Unfortunately, I can't always have them at the same time. But yeah, as always, you can watch the replay. And to make sure you don't miss any replays, click on the subscribe button. So that's it for today. Have a great week and see you next time. Bye.